Alright guys, you voted and you wanted the Spider-Man Omnibus tier ranking. Now there are just way too many Spider-Man Omnibuses to do one single video, so I am covering mostly the 2000s era onward. And this isn't every single one because there are some that I didn't read. I didn't include things like Joe Kelly's because I just didn't read everything he's done, and nor will I buy a book where it's just so many sporadic issues that I just don't want to deal with that. I like full runs, or at least partial runs that will eventually complete, so that type of book isn't for me. But the ones that I have listed here are all basically 2000 and onward, and then you will see I put on here Brand New Day Volume 2 Omnibus because it is coming out, and it's not out at the time of this video, but I have read all Brand New Day various times. It's one of the comics that I got into, and so it's on here because I'm gonna rank it because I know what's in that content and I want to give you my opinion on it, see if you want to pick it up. And one thing you'll also notice about my list, I do not have the Ultimate Spider-Man series on here because to me that's its own list. I do not have Spider-Man 2099 despite the shirt I'm wearing because basically I feel like I can just make a whole list or whole omnibus list of Elseworld Spider-Man or non-main 616 continuity Spider-Man books. So I might just do that for like Spider-Man 2099, Ultimate Spider-Man, and so on. So if you want to see a list like that, please write in the comments below that you do. But this is mostly covering the Amazing Spider-Man and a couple of others like Spider-Man Beyond and Spectacular Spider-Man in here. And we're going to start with one of my absolute favorite Spider-Man runs, and I'm going to pronounce this name once because I am absolutely horrible at pronunciation. People will vouch for you as you watch my video that you don't want to hear me fuck up these names. But Michael Straczynski, I think I got that right actually, had come out with a very, very different Spider-Man, but one that I absolutely grew to love. So why this volume works so well for me, especially the first volume, is that I think it just has a really good pace to it. So this is Peter Parker trying to find a purpose in life, and he actually becomes a school teacher, which to me is just such a genius idea for a character like Peter Parker at this stage in life, where he's very, very smart. And let's put that into his overall character. So when he's not fighting crime and he's not beating the shit out of bad guys, he is helping kids, and that to me is pretty much the perfect way Peter Parker should go in the 616 universe. On top of that, we introduce a new villain, Merlin. I think it's Merlin. I'm probably saying it wrong. If I am, roast me in the comments below as always. I absolutely love their first interaction, their first fight, because he very much feels like a Terminator type character, and Peter Parker just goes face to face with him, but never giving up. This again is the essence of Spider-Man. So you get the essence of Peter Parker during his day life and him being a teacher and helping kids, and then you get this Spider-Man who will never ever stop moving to protect people. And this is one of my favorite freaking arcs because it's just so goddamn epic and nail-biting. It's a great brutal fight, and it really sets up the mythos that Michael here is trying to do in his run. So to me, this first volume just kicks off really good and never really stops. A lot of this volume focuses on getting back with MJ and falling back in love with her after she left, and it just really feels like this is the perfect progression for Peter Parker in his probably mid or late 20s. So I really love the first volume. It to me is a must read. It's actually what I got into when I started reading comics when I was a teenager. Is between this and Ultimate Spider-Man, we were having two amazing Spider-Man comics running side by side, so this is a must read in my opinion. Now volume 2 unfortunately does not keep up the quality that you got in volume 1. So the biggest two things that you have to know about volume 2 is it contains two pretty bad storylines. One being very famous, well, they're both very famous, but Sin's Past, which brings back Gwen in a way, how do I not say it with spoilers? Well, it's like 20 years old, but it's pretty fucking stupid the way they retcon what happened to Gwen and what happens after. Hate all that. And this arc is just not that good. Then you get One More Day, which again, the idea and premise isn't a terrible one. The problem is that it's just really fucking stupid. It doesn't make sense that Peter Parker would make the choices he does after going through everything he did in this entire goddamn run. But it's not to say it's all bad. I really like the Back in Black arc, and the other arc was pretty good. And that's not me saying another arc. The arc is called The Other. Basically, Peter Parker dies and comes back more like a spider. It's weird, that's for fucking sure. But it also is entertaining, and that's what Michael does best. He keeps Spider-Man entertaining, even in the later half that is definitely more wobbly. So So I think this is still solid. I think I have a lot of fun, and I think that One More Day, again, isn't a bad idea. It's the execution that fucking sucks and blows dick, but overall the art is pretty damn good in this second half, and I think it's still worth reading, but I think it definitely has some issues, some big issues. So that's going to go right in solid, but has issues. All right, and so after all the hooba looba dooba that you got with One More Day comes Brand New Day. Now, if you don't know what Brand New Day is, it was basically a restart for Spider-Man, and there were a lot of cool ideas. This was coming out actually weekly. I remember it being a big thing back then because, again, comics only came out once a month. To have Spider-Man come out 3 or 4 times in a month is crazy. You have various different writers, from younger writers to older writers, coming on to just tell their story. So with that, having so many different writers, so many cooks in the kitchen, you're going to get different quality of comics. And in saying that, I think that what it's trying to do is recapture Peter Parker, Spider-Man, just daily being a hero and dealing with life. And for the most part, I think it does it pretty well. I have to say there are some standouts here. I really enjoyed the beginning, and I enjoyed Kraven's First Hunt. Things like that I thought were really good. Other ones where, and Mr. Negative was a really cool villain. But overall, I think that it definitely didn't fully keep my interest. I actually like a different one from this era more that I'm going to get into, but I still think it's good. I'm going to put it solid, but has issues, but I'm actually going to put it slightly ahead of Michael's, because Michael's has way lower points that I don't think Brand New Day has. So Brand New Day Volume 2, which is not out at the time of the recording, but again, I've read all of these issues a couple of times, and I actually like this portion of Brand New Day. So if I'm guessing with the omnibuses, when they're all complete, Brand New Day should basically be 3 volumes, and then we should have Big Time. And Big Time is when Dan Slott completely takes over the Spider-Man run, which, again, I also have ups and downs with that run. But as it stands, this is also still having multiple different writers kind of giving their take and stories on Spider-Man. I actually like this portion of the comics quite a bit because it has things like American Son arc, which I really enjoyed, and Dying in Your Arms Tonight. So those type of comics to me are what makes Peter Parker interesting, is you're combining Peter Parker's daily life with his Spider-Man life, and those arcs alone are some of my favorite from the Brand New Day status quo. On top of that, they do have a mini in here that focuses on Anti-Venom. I've always been a pretty big fan of Anti-Venom, especially his overall costume. I think the white is really cool. But saying that, I do think it does have its ups and downs, but as in my personal opinion, Volume 3 is not out or announced, but this is my favorite portion of the entire Brand New Day. Now, of course, that'll vary because a lot of people like the Gauntlet, which should be mostly in Volume 3, and there are some moments I really liked from the Gauntlet saga, but for me, this is the best part of Brand New Day, so I'm going to put it in a low, pretty great. Again, I don't think it's the most best read ever, but I had a good time reading everything, and I didn't dislike any arcs in this run period. All right, so Superior Spider-Man. So we're missing a big chunk between Dan Slott's Big Time and then he eventually makes this Superior Spider-Man, which has Peter Parker taken over by Doc Ock, and he has his body and his powers, and he basically becomes a hero, but he's still kind of an asshole bad guy because he's a villain. And Superior Spider-Man, to a lot of people, is either absolutely love it or dislike the idea that it's anybody but Peter Parker. I am absolutely open to new characters taking the mantle, and I think having a villain take over and trying to redeem himself in some ways is a really cool idea. What do I think of Superior Spider-Man? I have a lot of ups and downs. I think there's some really amazing moments. I think there's some really good arcs. And then there on the flip side, I don't really like some of the later half of this run. I think it just kind of dwindles down to depending on who's writing it. So we have Christopher Gage, I think his name is, who writes a lot of these, or at least does the dialogue. And to me, those are actually stronger issues than when Dan Slott is writing them. I think he's also the writer of the first Spider-Man game, and I can sense that type of growth for a character here. So I really liked those issues a lot. But overall, Superior Spider-Man is actually a really good time. Even at its low, I still enjoyed it for what it was, but at its high, it was absolutely awesome. So I think this is pretty great. I think it's actually better than Brand New Day, because it has 2 arcs in here that are absolutely fucking awesome. One Prison Break one that's really, really good, and one fight with Scorpion that is just brutal and shows who Spider-Man could be if he wasn't such a good person as Peter Parker. So Superior is really good, but I don't think it's quite a must-read like some people think as one of the greatest runs. I have to disagree there. All right, so Spider-Verse. So funny thing about Spider-Verse, I always read pieces here or there, but this is actually kind of when I dipped out of Spider-Man. I didn't really care about Spider-Verse that much for comics for a while. I came back and read this about 2 years ago, the entire thing. So I all the spin-offs, all the coming in. And this omnibus actually includes the sequel, Spider-Geddon. So there's Spider-Verse, Spider-Geddon, and really this is not really my type of comic all the way. Now, I do think there's really cool moments. I think the main story, when you get down to it, is a cool idea to see all these different versions of Peter Parker or Spider-Man come together to beat the evil. My major issue with this one in particular is I don't think it's for someone like me. So it feels more like fan service type of comic, and I think a lot of people will enjoy that. And I've enjoyed fan service comics, but for me, I like more serious Spider-Man stories. And I also like more grounded, down-to-earth Spider-Man stories that tell a tale that's personal. Spider-Verse is anything but that. It's big, it's epic, a lot of shit's happening. Spider-Geddon even more. It's just basically Merlin and his crew coming around killing people. So for me, Spider-Verse didn't really work all that well, but I don't think it's bad. It's a solid, fun, bombastic, blockbuster type event. So if that's what you're looking for Spider-Man, I think it does it pretty well. It's far from being the worst Spider run of all time in terms of like big events. I think it's actually pretty solid, but for me, it's not really something I love. So I'm going to put it in solid, but has issues. But I'm going to actually put it on the lower half. It's not something I'd probably ever reread after I read it completed. All right, and so we pick up where we left off, except the fact that we're missing pretty much a whole, like, 3 years worth of comics after Spider-Verse. So Dan Slott also makes Spider-Man Worldwide, which we do not have an omnibus. Now, I predict we will. Dan Slott is a big writer. Whether you like him or dislike him, that's beyond this. The point is he's a popular writer, and Spider-Man is a popular character, so we're going to get omnibuses for that. But if you don't mind skipping ahead, because Nick Spencer's run is probably one of the newer ones and probably one of the more accessible ones because you can just jump right in, we're going to jump into Nick Spencer's Omnibus Volume 1 and 2. And so Volume 1 is actually pretty solid. I will say, kind of like Brand New Day, it just kind of feels like a fun time, but it doesn't really hit super high for me in terms of overall feeling. Now, I did like a lot of stuff. I really like Boomerang in this run, and this first half definitely has the cool mystery behind who's Kindred. And in the beginning, which I'll get into the second half of this run, I actually was intrigued who Kindred was. I loved his design. He was disgusting, and I wanted to see how we were going to keep retconning bullshit that happened in previous Spider-Man runs, and Nick Spencer mostly did that well. Nick Spencer is a writer I enjoy, but I have some issues with sometimes, especially his pacing. But I actually like his Spider-Man. I think he's a pretty funny Spider-Man. Art by Ryan Ottley in the beginning of this run is absolutely beautiful, invincible artist, so we know it's going to be great. So overall, I think the first half is actually pretty great for the most part. I mean, it's not amazing. I don't think it's a must read, but I put it up there with, you know, Brand New Day. I'd actually probably put it right next to it and in between Superior. I think Superior still has the higher highs, but I actually think it's a pretty great, solid first half. And then unfortunately, we get the second half of Nick Spencer's run, which is everything but that. I don't know how to really say it without sounding like an asshole, but this is not good. This is pretty much the most okay-ish thing I can think of. I don't think it's throwaway. I don't think it's absolutely a horrible thing, but I do think it really fails to live up to the potential. Especially, so the beginning of this second part isn't too bad. It's really when you get the reveal of who Kindred is. Everything after that is pretty bad. I really hate pretty much once he gets his new white suit, or multiple suits, but the white one, all that is garbage. It's not fun. It feels like we're stretching out the storyline for no reason. There's a couple of great moments with him and MJ, but this isn't great. This is pretty much, you should only buy this if you want to really be a completionist, or the only other reason I can see you buying this is if you want to know how this run ends. But I gotta say, it doesn't end in a very good way. It's not something I regret reading, but I'd probably only read this once and then just be like, never want to really read again. So again, it's not throwaway, but it's the low end of okay-ish for me. So Spectacular Spider-Man, or Chip's run on Spectacular Spider-Man, which also includes oh my gosh, life story of Spider-Man, everything, and then he had a little mini also if the symbiote suit stayed with him. But really the focus on this omnibus is his Spectacular Spider-Man, or Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man, if you want to get thorough. But this run is awesome for the most part. I do think some of it is a little off. The sister stuff is not my favorite, but when we get down to it, there's a JJ arc in here, or 2-issue, or maybe 1 issue, that is absolutely phenomenal. This run also has one of the greatest last arcs of it. It also has some of the coolest fight scenes. I think it's a complete package. What's nice about this run is that you don't really have to read much before it or after it. It finishes, it tells kind of a tale of Peter Parker's life during this era, and I think it's actually really good. Would I say it's a must-read? I think so, because we also get life story in this run. Now, let me tell you a little bit of the life story. I think it's one of the greatest Spider-Man comics out there. It is really that good. Again, another thing we can just pick up and read it. And what it is Spider-Man's life aging through the years. So if he started his superhero-ness in 60s or 70s, it goes through the various years all the way to current day, where he's much older, obviously, because he's aging normal. Very, very good. And for that alone, I think this is a must-read omnibus. But I also think the Spectacular run is really good as well. So I don't know if I'd put it as high as Michael's, because of what that run did for me as a kid, got me into this character. But it's right next to it in terms of, if we're talking about modern last 10 years, I think this is the best Spider-Man material really available overall, outside of the new Ultimate Spider-Man, which is my favorite. And probably the last 20 years, it feels like. But no, this is a great run. Definitely go pick this one up before it's out of print. All right, and we have the 2 stragglers. So Spider-Man Beyond. Now, I'm going to go against the popular opinion here that I think this is pretty fun. I'm a big Ben Reilly fan, so that puts me in a weird position that a lot of people are not, which is fine. He's not a great character, but he's a fun character. He's a character that I feel can be so much more than he is, but, you know, we don't really give him a chance because he's usually just used as going villain again. But overall, I really liked him and his part of it. So I think Spider-Man Beyond actually starts off really good, and some of the later issues are even good, but the first half of this is really cool, seeing Peter out of commission and then trying to build himself back up, and seeing Ben Reilly step up to be Spider-Man, and I loved his relationship with his wife. So all of that to me is really good. It's the second half where the reveal happens and we bring in Ben to become a villain again. It feels so fucking cliche and done over and over again. And I really don't like the very last couple issues. But overall, I don't think this is a bad run. I actually had fun with it. I think it's a solid but has issues type of comic, and a good epilogue to Spencer's run. So I don't think it's absolutely horrible. Some people do, which is fine. So I'm gonna put this actually in front of Spider-Verse, because I had more fun reading Spider-Verse. And if it wasn't for a second weaker half, this probably would have been a little bit higher for me. All right, and the last book I'm going to talk about for modern Spider-Man is Dark Web. And Dark Web is a fucking shitty comic. I cannot recommend this comic to absolutely anyone in the universe. I think this is some of the worst Spider-Man stories to ever grace our fucking eyes in terms of readers. I know I'm sounding harsh here, but I don't dislike Wells' entire run. I think it's more okay than bad. I know some people absolutely hate it, but I think it's okay. I especially really like the first 2 arcs. Then it kind of dies down, then it just becomes okay, and never really recovers from that okay feeling all those issues later. But Dark Web is absolutely the lowest point. I would say it's even worse than Gang War, which I also thought wasn't good. But Dark Web is dumb. It's stupid. It's trying to be funny, but it fails on every level, which kind of sucks, because I actually think Wells is a pretty funny writer if you read his other stuff outside of here. But this is a really poor example of Wells's Spider-Man time, because I again don't think his is the worst Spider-Man run of all time. I don't think it's the best by far, but I don't think it's the worst, and I don't think it's awful. I think this though is fucking awful, and what a weird freaking omnibus to make. Like, who asked for dark web of all the Spider-Man comics that we can get to be made? I can't imagine this sold well, if anybody has the statistics on this, but this is a throwaway. This is like, don't own this. If you can get this for $10, go give that to a fucking charity. You know what I'm saying? This is shit. It's a throwaway comic. And that's my list. So, you know, Spider-Man has a lot of ups and downs. I think it unfortunately has probably more downs than ups for me overall. At times, but again, a lot of it's solid. A lot of it is solid because I'm a fan of the character, so even the weaker stories I still enjoy to a degree. But at the same time, when I think about like amazing Spider-Man stories, it's far and few between. This is like 20 years worth of Spider-Man. Now we're missing some, but come on, man. Only 2 must-reads of the mainline Spider-Man omnibus is definitely a downer. If I were to do the same thing for Batman, or even Captain America, this list would be very different. There's absolutely more must-reads of both those characters than there are Spider-Man. Now that hurts me. Now, if we are going to get into the Elseworld list, you're gonna see me a lot more happy. you're gonna be like, oh, okay, so this is where the Spider-Man books are, because I'll tell you right now, they're better than most of this by a large margin. Not all of it, obviously, but there are some amazing Spider-Man comics that I want to talk about. So if you guys want to see Elseworld, I don't want to say Elseworld, other universes of Spider-Man 2099 or Ultimate Spider-Man, please let me know. I would love to make a list of them. I'll be a lot more positive on that. But for this, I gotta be honest, this is a bit of a struggle, this list, because the solid but has issues is still worth reading, but it's a very like hard, like, read it but you might not enjoy it type thing. None of these are like must reads. They're pretty great. I think most people would at least enjoy those stories for the most part, and must reads to me, I still think those are must reads, so please go check those out. But this is my list. Obviously, like I said, I didn't put everything on here. There are so many omnibuses for Spider-Man. I eventually want to go back and do like a 70s to 90s Spider-Man list. The biggest problem with that is I'm still going through those. I'm right before Clone Saga, and so I have to read the Mark Bagley Volume 2 omnibus when it comes out, and then I gotta read all the Clone Saga, and that's gonna take me a while. So once I finish all that, then I can revisit the 70s to 90s Spider-Man comics, which there are quite a few, and I've read quite a few, so I do want to do that. Anyway, this is my list. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please put yours below. As always, I love to hear your opinion on this era of comics. If you have more in the must-reads, if you have more in the okay-ish, if you have more in the throwaway, please let me know below. And I hope you guys just have a wonderful Spidey day, because I guess I do. I don't know. I wish I was more happy for Spider-Man. I'm pretty happy in life.